be tiresome, right? Just load here. Yeah, that's what, yeah, because you gotta do every hearing, order, every hearing, order. And always back up the orders. Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's 5:30. We'll go ahead and start the meeting. We'll start with introductions. On my right, far right.
Good evening. My name is Ryan Greenfeld. I'm the Communications and PR Manager here at Brownsville PUB, and I also serve as the liaison on PUBCAP.
Hello everyone, my name is Griselda Munoz and I work for Creative Liquid Coatings.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jose Medrano, and I'm a small business owner here in Brownsville.
Good evening. My name is Eliza Vasquez. I'm the chairperson, and I represent the commercial real estate industry for Brownsville.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Patricia Cavazos, and I work with BISD.
Hello, everyone. My name is Chester Gonzalez. I'm an attorney here in Brownsville.
Good evening. Luz Marshall, BISD.
Ryan, do we have any guests tonight?
We did have one person who signed up for public comment, Mr. Cornejo. If he's here, if you want to go ahead and we could do public comment if he's already here. If not, we can come back toward the end and see if he was able to make it.
Okay. Next item is approval of February and March minutes. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
We have a first and a second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. Next item is old business. Ryan, do we have any old business to discuss?
I just wanted to kind of follow up on a couple of the items. One of them I'll just really briefly touch on, which is the Project Share Scholarship. Just want to thank our PUBCAP members for assisting with that. Other than that, I won't don't say too much more because Miguel has his presentation that he's going to be giving, but I just wanted to do a real quick thank you once again for the people who assisted with that.
Absolutely, thank you.
We also have our Conservation Superheroes contest. The voting for that ended on Friday. Want to appreciate everyone who was able to vote. There was a lot of participation in it, and we will be updating the winners for that soon. Thinking that probably next month we will do a follow-up on that with everyone. Let's everyone see the final winners and everything.
Glad to hear we had a good participation.
I also talked a little bit, followed up about our event request form, and just kind of wanted to, again, say that maybe some of y'all spread it around also after last month, because we definitely got a lot of requests for this month. Of course, I think a lot of that is also the school year, starting to come to an end too. So we've been really busy with outreach requests, which is great. We've been able to get a lot of different. What's been nice too is being able to get a lot of different crews out there, because we've had so many more requests recently. So we're able to get some different departments who aren't always out in the public. We've been able to get them to be able to get out and talk more about what they do as well.
Very nice.
And again, kind of along the lines of events, I just wanted to bring up again the community tour. The wastewater community tour is scheduled for this Friday. We just have a couple of spots remaining, so if anyone is interested, we encourage you to go ahead and sign up before it's too late, because like I say, not too many more spots are remaining. And then along with that, we also have tomorrow, we're doing the Leadership Brownsville tour as well. We're doing the morning half, I believe. So it's definitely a busy week this week. And I did want to follow up. I did receive I received a couple of applications for new members, and I'll be sending out some information about that so that we can go ahead and make some moves on that before the next meeting and get things squared away.
Okay. I would encourage anybody from the public who is not participating in one of these tours to participate. You'll learn a lot.
And
Going
that's-
on to new business?
New business, I just kind of thought I would do a slight follow-up after this Monday's board meeting. The payment arrangement policy was passed. I just thought I would follow up on that because that was one of the presentations that we had recently. And I did want to bring up, since we were talking about so many events this week, there's also the One City event that Brownsville is having tomorrow. We will have a booth there as well, so encourage people to go out and participate.
Good. Glad to see PUB really involved.
And then just kind of a slightly kind of off, hand kind of request for y'all. We're looking into ordering some more giveaways for, schools, classes that we go to, events, and that kind of thing. If y'all have any suggestions on things that y'all think might be useful, either for students or for adults, since we have, both audiences that we kind of serve, you're welcome to either, reach out to me after, or if y'all want to send me an email or something. We are always trying to look to do something fresh.
Good. We'll send you recommendations.
Thank you. That's all I have for new business right now.
Okay. Thank you, Ryan. We'll go on to our drought update.
Good evening, Chairwoman, PUBCAP members. My name is Lupe Garcia. I'm the Water Resources Administrator for Brownsville PUB, and today, this evening, I'll go ahead and go through a drought update. So, as of May 4th of 2024, the current Amistad and Falcon Reservoir percentages, they did drop. They dropped down to 20.6%. Our midpoint for drought stage 2 is 20%, so we are right at that midpoint, right? Once we go 15 and below, we'll jump to drought stage 3. So this graph does show the information having to do with the previous years back from 2021 and the monthly levels that we've had. As you can see, right now we're in May, and the percentage is 20.6. We have been dropping from last month. The end of last month in April was 21%. Over to the left-hand side, we have the previous 3 readings. These readings are weekly readings. So you can see back in April 13th was at 21.7, April 20th at 21.4, April 27th at 21.0. So we are seeing anywhere from a 0.3 to 0.4% drop weekly right now. And as we continue going into the summer, the days are going to get hotter, more evaporation rates, which leads me to the next slide. The National Weather Service, they did provide some information to everybody here in the valley, and the forecasts do indicate above average temperatures with above average evaporation rates, like I mentioned, and little to no soil moisture retention. Stage 2 water conservation is going to continue, and they predict for it to even worsen, and they're predicting for it to worsen as we get into early summer. Significant inflows from Mexico, tributaries, they remain unlikely between May through July. They are going through the same situation as we're going. They're in the same boat, actually a little bit worse than where we are right now with the percentages. Water crisis in May or June is likely for agriculture and some municipalities. We're already seeing a big impact with agriculture. And as we're leading, from week to week, it's beginning to impact more and more municipalities as we go on. Cameron County did issue a disaster declaration on April 15th of 2024. That disaster declaration is Cameron County saying to the governor, you know, there's a drought disaster here just based on the amount of water that is available in the reservoirs. So I do want to point out that to you all, that the Cameron County, both Cameron County and Hidalgo County did file for that disaster declaration having to do with drought. And as a reminder, I just want to remind you all, coming June 1st, it is this beginning of our hurricane season. Right now, they're beginning kind of the rollouts with the National Weather Service for everybody to start getting prepared for hurricane season. And hopefully for us, you know, with this hurricane season, hopefully we can get enough rainfall where it matters. Even if it rains here in Brownsville, our reservoirs are located in Amistad over by Eagle Pass and Falcon reservoirs close to Laredo area. So that's where the percentages really matter if the rainfall lands in those specific areas. And with that, I do conclude my presentation. Is there any questions?
Can you remind the viewers that you see us via live stream line what stage 2 is?
So drought stage 2, yes, let me go ahead and go back here on the slides. Okay, so drought stage 2, it is when the two reservoirs combine capacity, both Amistad and Falcon reservoirs. When those reservoirs percentages do drop down below the 25% mark, and this is the U.S. share of water. So Mexico also has their share stored in there. So once it drops below 25, we have a 10% mark where it designates it as drought stage 2. So with drought stage 2, we have some restrictions in place. Mm-hmm. Those restrictions do limit us up to 2 times, or for us to water twice per week. And there's if they want to learn more, we do have it on our website. If they go into our website, they click on drought, they're able to get that information having to do with what restrictions we do have in place for drought stage 2. So it has to do with landscaping, washing of vehicles, also maluse of water. It has all of that in the plan, and they can definitely find it in our website.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think I've seen some of those updates and either the suggestions or the restrictions also on social media. And I think that's been very, very helpful because it's a reminder to us, to me, to, you know, push that forward so that the community understands, A, that we are in drought 2, but that there are suggestions for water conservation. So I can really appreciate that that's, you know, periodically on social media too.
Yeah, I want to thank our PR department and social media department in regards to those posts being put out there for the public. Any further questions?
Thank you for your presentation, Mr. Garcia.
Okay, thank you so much.
Next, we have a presentation on the Share Scholarship.
Good evening, members of the PUBCAP. My name is Miguel Calles. I'm the Digital Information Platforms Manager at Brownsville Public Utilities Board and the coordinator for the Project Share Scholarship. The mission of the scholarship is BPB provides an annual Project Share Scholarship program to support deserving students in their pursuit of higher education. And this directly reflects BPB's commitment to the power of education. Over the past 17 years, BPB has awarded roughly $163,500 in scholarships to roughly about 177 recipients. So we've been, this is an ongoing program, and we thank the support of the board and the executives for their commitment and support to continuing this important program for the students. Just to give you a recap of the application requirements, students, we've been engaging actively with all the schools, all the high schools and area schools that qualify for this particular scholarship. The students are required to fill out an online application. They must reside in a household that receives services from BPUB. That could either be electric, water, or wastewater. They must be graduating students for this school year and must be attending a accredited university in the United States. Typically, we award 10 scholarships. Prior to this year, the amount that we awarded was $1,000. It has since then been increased to $2,000. I think this better assists the students, with any type of school expenses that they may need, whether it be books or laptops or anything like that, would be obviously very helpful for them. And this year's 2024 scholarship recipients were announced during our board meeting. And the recipients are as follows: Chloe Mares from James Pace High School, Larissa Aracia from Hanna High School, Rebecca Loera from Los Fresnos High School, Mia Calderon from Hanna High School, America Rangel from Rivera High School, Sandra Salazar from Porter High School, Brianna Brajas from Veterans Memorial, and Daya Anish from Idea Frontier, Abigail Rodriguez from Rivera, and Kendra Rivera from Veterans Memorial. We have awarded the scholarship to these students. We are planning a formal announcement. We've just released a press release about that today, and we're also going to let the community know further with a billboard and an ad in the Herald. Before I wrap up, I do want to thank the evaluation committee, so thank you all for participating in that, and we really appreciate the support. With that said, do you have any questions for me?
I don't have a question, I just have a comment. And I was one of the members that evaluated, and that was a very welcome opportunity. It was a very challenging opportunity because there was a lot of creativity. There was these kids are all the participants that applied. They really went above and beyond, and it wasn't an easy process, but it's much appreciated to have been part of the greater group that did the evaluation. So I just thought it was important that it continue to.
We'll certainly appreciate your support, and thank you for participating in that committee. Any other questions?
Yes, I do have a question.
Yes.
The scholarships, was that based, and I was not in the committee, so I don't know, but maybe you can answer this question for me. Was that based on grades, or was that based on just the submission and application and?
So the way we have our application is structured, we have certain criteria. We account, they get awarded different points based on the criteria. That includes the GPA, extracurricular activities, work experience, and then also they have to write an essay, right? And they're evaluated on that. So it's a weighted point system. And so they can receive up to 100 points, and there's different evaluators. There's 3 evaluators per student, right? And so based on those points, cumulatively, then we rank the students based on that.
But it's not based on economic need, correct?
No. No, yeah, it's solely based on the criteria from the application, so it's a weighted point system.
Thank you.
Yes.
And the applications are anonymous to the evaluators?
Yes, correct. So yeah, the evaluation committee receives the applications. They're all redacted, so there's no way to identify the student.
Thank you for your participation and lead on that project.
Thank you.
We'll go on to the next presentation on grease traps.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Daniel Guerra, and I'm one of 2 senior environmental compliance specialists working here at PUB under the pretreatment department. Today, I'm here to provide a brief overview of why pretreatment systems such as grease traps are important and why we all should be mindful about what we flush down our drains. But before that, I would like to provide you with a bit of background information about the department and our ordinance. The pretreatment Department utilizes the City of Brownsville Non-Domestic Wastewater Pretreatment Ordinance number 2020-795-G to protect and safeguard the publicly owned treatment works. Why is the pretreatment program required? Well, the purpose of the pretreatment program is to satisfy compliance with applicable state and federal laws regarding the Clean Water Act of 1977 and the General Pretreatment Regulations for existing and new sources of pollution under 40 CFR Part 403 to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the general public and the POTW personnel. In addition, to enable BPUB to comply with Texas Pollutant Discharge Elimination System permits, sludge use and disposal requirements, as well as other federal and state laws. The PUTW, or publicly owned treatment work, collects waste from commercial, residential, and industrial sources that mix and flow into various lift stations around town. These lift stations pump and direct waste into one of two wastewater treatment facilities in Brownsville, as shown in the diagram. The pretreatment department itself consists of Albert Gomez, the Director of Environmental Services, Juan Carrizales, Pretreatment Manager, 2 Senior Environmental Compliance Specialists, Juan Castañeda, who leads the Industrial Program, and myself, Daniel Guerra, who leads the FOG Program, as well as several technicians under us that carry out more day-to-day tasks. In order to prevent the introduction of harmful pollutants into the City of Brownsville's sanitary sewer system that can cause interference or pass through the wastewater treatment plant, we have created the Industrial and FOG programs to help identify and tackle various sources of domestic and non-domestic wastewater pollutants. Domestic is residential and home. Non-domestic is everything else, including industries and food processing operations. Day-to-day activities conducted under the FOG program include routine inspections, facility wastewater sampling, participating in City of Brownsville pretreatment meetings, commenting on site plan reviews, issuing approval investigations, and reporting on sanitary sewer overflows and various informant actions. Day-to-day of the industrial program includes regulating industrial user wastewater discharge through effluent permits, monitoring via compliance and surcharge sampling events, routine inspections, and various enforcement actions. Industries are further broken down into 2 categories: significant industrial users and industrial users, with the difference between the two including if they discharge certain categorical pollutants as listed under 40 CFR, including arsenic, copper, lead, mercury, or sulfides, to name a few, or those that discharge over 25,000 gallons or more per day. Examples of significant industrial users include Rich Products, formerly known as CPAC, Trico, and National Electric Coils. Some example of industrial users would be various manufacturing facilities, medical centers and dentistries, warehouses, transportation brokers, and mechanic shops. Now, with that bit of background information out of the way, let's further discuss the namesake of the FOG program, fats, oils, and grease. Fats, oils, and grease are derived from any and all liquid or food solids that are mixed with water and enter the POTW. This includes baking goods, butter, lard, shortening, cooking oils, food scraps, gravies, mayonnaise, salad dressing, and so on. All food is organic in nature and thus breaks down in water. Once this food starts breaking down and enters our sanitary system, they become fats, oils, and grease. The effects of fats, oil, and grease. Once they enter the sanitary system, it can cause sewer backups and blockages, which may lead to SSOs, otherwise known as sanitary sewer overflows, that are costly to clean up and lead to a number of health hazards and environmental impacts, such as fish kills, if said overflows reach storm drains or resakas. SSOs have caused serious problems in the past. In 2012 alone, Brownsville experienced 731 unique service request calls in response to these various SSOs. In response, BPUB worked in partnership with TCEQ, the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality, to develop the SSO Agreement and SSO Initiative Program. By 2016, the number of service request calls was reduced by half, and has been steadily dropping. Since 2013, the number of service requests has been reduced upwards of 85%. In 24 alone, as of the end of April 30th, we've had only 76 service request calls. As part of the SSO agreement and initiative, the FOG program is responsible for inspecting at least 10% of all food service establishments on an annual basis. As of today, the department has already completed inspections on close to 70% of all food service establishments in Brownsville. The department is also responsible for providing public outreach opportunities to teach best management practices and to discuss the harmful effects of FOGs and SSOs. As you can see in the picture,
Nice.
this is a cross-section of a sanitary sewer pipeline that has been completely covered in fats, oils, and grease. Unless cleaned, it won't be much longer till enough fats, oils, and grease slows the flow and blocks the pipeline leading to an SSO. Here's a picture of PUB crewmen actively trying to remove a clog consisting of fats, oils, and grease. If you look closely on the picture on the right, you can see hardened clumps of fog that had to be scraped up. It doesn't take long for it to cluster together and become nearly as hard as concrete. All things considered, it's a very resource-intensive process to ensure that BPUB's sewer system is running smoothly. Here are a few more examples of cleanouts and manholes filled with fats, oils, and grease. As you can see here, have you ever seen standing water in a dry, sunny day? Chances are that that's a sanitary waste overflowing out of manholes and cleanouts. As far as I know, I wouldn't want any child to pass through with a bike on that. Categorizing fog. As previously mentioned, the fog program is responsible for categorizing and monitoring residential waste and commercial waste. Now that you've seen some of the consequences of allowing fats, oils, and grease to go unchecked, let's talk about how we at the department fight back against the problem. Once again, domestic is non-regulated, and that's going to be for residential in all our homes and apartment complexes. Commercial is going to be non-domestic regulated waste. It's no secret that fats, oils, and grease are widely considered to be the leading cause of sewer problems for local jurisdictions all across the nation. That's why it's important to identify residential areas with sewer grease problems, offer outreach presentations to the community, and go door to door distributing informational door hangers in order to, once again, reduce the amount of SSOs we have in Brownsville. Best management practices include wiping or scraping dishes before washing, disposing of any food scraps in the trash, never pouring grease down the drains, and collecting all grease and liquid oils from pots, pans, and fryers in a covered container. Now, most importantly, to spread the word to your friends and families about some of these best management practices. I'd like to note that garbage disposal are not adequate systems to remove fats, oils, and grease. All they do is help break down any food scraps that may have entered the system. While we're on the topic of what can cause SSOs, I want to quickly mention, quote, flushable wipes. These might include baby wipes, hygienic wipes, toilet bowl scrubbers, cleaning products, and paper towels. While many of these products do contain the word flushable on them, and many of our modern toilets and sanitary systems are capable of getting it from point A to point D and actually flushing it down, that does not mean that they are biodegradable or that they will break down in water. What happens is that they clump up together and cause problems on our sanitary sewer lines. At the end of the day, it's important to trash the wipes, not your plumbing. As you can see here, this is a pump from a local lift station covered in rags and disposable wipes. Just like fog in our sewer lines, this can cause a lot of problems and tie down pumps to do all this debris and floating matter. To each of us here at the Procurement Department, outreach is very important to us and something that we take great pride when given the opportunity to involve and educate the community. We've had several posts on PUB's website and YouTube page for outreach. We do have and utilize the billboard on the corner of Ruben Torres in the Expressway to help advertise, to, not pour fats, oils, and grease down the drain. And when given the chance, we do go out and talk to our communities at different events to inform our customers and fellow citizens about these problems that fats, oils, and grease, and as well as disposable wipes can cause. If you live in an area that had a sanitary overflow in the past, you might encounter a flyer like this on your door. But sorry to keep you all waiting. Here's the moment you've been waiting for, the importance of pretreatment systems such as grease traps. At current, the city of Brownsville has 1,060 active food service establishments ranging from restaurants, snack shops, daycares, schools, bakeries, and coffee shops. Each and every one is responsible for operating and maintaining a properly sized grease trap to ensure adequate amounts of fats, oils, and grease are trapped, collected, and removed from wastewater systems. On average, a standard 500-gallon grease interceptor is capable of holding upwards to 1,000 pounds of fats, oils, and grease before decreasing in efficiency and needing to be cleaned out. In terms of actual capacity, the PUTWs within Brownsville are more than capable of handling the amounts of sanitary waste its citizens produce on a day-to-day basis. The problem comes with transporting all that waste from their location to our treatment plants. As I have shown, it doesn't take much for all that waste, all that fats, oils, and grease to coagulate and coat city lines, and once it does, the results are often devastating. The two main systems that you might encounter are considered gravity flow grease traps and grease interceptors. The difference on the top left is a grease trap which holds about 50 gallons of water. The one on the top right is a standard 500-gallon grease interceptor, which, as I mentioned, can hold up to 1,000 pounds of grease. There are also newer models available on the market called hydromechanical systems. While not much bigger in size to the grease traps, these are comparable to containers that you can buy at your local store that you might use for Halloween decorations or the such. They can easily go under the sink or be put outside. In terms of grease loading capacities, these hydromechanical units are much like the Ferraris, and they can remove extreme amounts of fats, oils, and grease given their size. A comparable unit on the left, which holds about 65 gallons of liquid waste, will retain upwards of 450 pounds of grease, nearly half of what a standard 500-gallon grease interceptor. Here at Brownsville, it is important, and we do follow the ordinance, that each and every small business installs, operates, and maintains a standard 500-gallon grease interceptor. More commercial businesses, McDonald's, Burger King, Red Lobsters, and such, operate much larger systems, upwards of 1,500 to 4,000 gallon systems. At the end of the day, grease traps are the #1 way to remove all this fats, oils, and grease before it enters our sewage system. Now, you may be asking yourself, why have a system for just commercial needs and not residential? The answer comes from percentages. The amount of waste generally produced by a residential area is going to be mainly sanitary. It's going to be mostly water. Not many of us cook that often on a day-to-day basis, and if it is, the amount of food we're preparing is minimal. When looking at grease traps, we're not necessarily too focused on the cooking process, but more so what is actually being washed and rinsed down the drains. These systems are meant to collect all liquid and solid waste from 3-compartment sinks, mop sinks, hand washing sinks, and floor drains found within food service establishments. When it comes to food service establishments, such as restaurants, they're producing large amounts of food very quickly and consistently throughout the day. So when you compare the volume of, we refer to as BOD, biological oxygen demand, and TSS, total suspended solids, which give us an outlier for how much fog is in this wastewater system, the results are much higher compared to residential areas. That concludes my presentation. Do you all have any questions about the importance of grease traps? Hopefully, with this information, you can see that While grease traps are important, the overall goal is to reduce sanitary overflows within Brownsville.
I have a couple of questions.
Of course.
So it's my understanding that there are companies that come and clean out those grease traps,
Yes.
and then they take that material where?
To registered facilities. At current, BPUB's wastewater facilities are not licensed by the state to accept hauled waste. The nearest hauled center is going to be just outside of Olmito. I'm sorry, not Olmito. Oh, it's just north of Hidalgo.
Hidalgo, the city, or Hidalgo County?
I'm sorry. Outside, just north of Harlingen. I forget the little rose something. Santa Rosa, yes.
Oh, okay, okay.
Those are third-party waste haulers that come and collect waste. They are licensed and registered by both us here at PUB and the state of Texas to collect that waste and transport it from these grease traps to another location for it to be fully processed. The last thing we want is for Joe, you may know, who collects that waste and goes and dumps it in Resaca.
And what is the process when you have violations?
We do have a enforcement guideline that was approved and developed by TCEQ, Texas Commission on Environment Quality, to issue a one of three notice of violations. This may be in regards to infractions of improper maintenance. Maybe the user of that grease trap isn't cleaning it as often as they need to be, or they're not keeping proper documentation, what we call a waste manifest, which is provided by these waste haulers that shows the proper or the past cleaning history of these systems. We give them so much time to correct the issue. If they still fail to correct the issue, we invite them for a show cause hearing there at the office between us and the pretreatment manager to further discuss what might be a delay or a reason. Most often than not, the case in point is a lack of knowledge of the problems that fats, oils, and grease can cause to our system and why they need to be removed. From there, if they continue to disagree or not comply, they are put on a surcharge monitoring program where every month we go and collect a wastewater sample to send it for analytical testing. Based on those results and the water consumption used for that month period, we charge a surcharge amount.
Does the cost of the consumer, the commercial consumer, that is, it's based on that formula that you just stated, but the cost of providing the waste trap or the grease trap, is that an additional cost to the commercial business, let's say?
Yes, each and every business is responsible for purchasing and operating their own system.
Which PUB implements, right? Or is it?
It's by the city ordinance, which is a Brownsville ordinance. We go in as part of PUB pretreatment program is to monitor these facilities and make sure they're keeping up with code.
So I have a question regarding, it's understandable how a standalone brick and mortar restaurant type business might fall under this requirement. But I kind of have a personal question regarding food trucks and maybe food truck parks. How are those monitored? Or how are those
Classified?
Yeah.
Yes. They're classified, as we see them, two separate things. We have food trucks, which are separate from food truck parks. Currently, BPUB monitors food truck parks because there is a central authority figure who is responsible for maintaining that system as a whole. Food trucks are not regulated by our department as they are not required to connect and tap in to our sanitary sewer system.
Any other questions?
We don't require these systems for residential. No, because as I mentioned earlier, it's going to be the actual percentages of fats, oils, and grease in commercial waste compared to residential waste. Not only that, but moving forward, it will be very difficult and very costly for having residents install and apply these systems.
What about apartment complexes? Would that be considered residential?
apartment complexes and duplexes are considered residential.
Okay, so they wouldn't be required to have a grease trap?
In most cases, no. Some apartment complexes that do have a community center with a food service establishment, if they have a stove and more than just food warming areas,
Yeah.
will be required to
The
install a
community
system.
kitchen might be required.
Yes, exactly.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Guerra. We appreciate your presentation.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you, sir.
We're going to have a change in the agenda. We're going to hear about the power supply resources before the integrated resource plan, please.
Keyboard. Thanks. Good evening, Mark Dombrowski, Assistant General Manager, Chief Operating Officer. As promised, I'm back again this month, and we're going to continue talking about our integrated resource plan. As I mentioned last month, that our board has asked you to serve as our voice of our customer as we look at expanding the resources in our portfolio. And so last month I gave an introduction to the IRP and what it is. And if any of you would like, I'd be glad to sit with you and go over that if you missed it last month. Tonight, I'm going to just talk for a few minutes. I'm joined by three of my coworkers, and we're going to cover the types of resources that we look at in an integrated resource plan. And Nina Alvarez, our risk manager, she's going to talk about the IRP process itself and where we are today. So a little bit of a repeat from last month, which is the role that ERCOT plays is they're the ones responsible to make sure that there's enough power in Texas to serve all the needs of the customers. And so if there's not enough power for individual utilities, such as Brownsville PUB, we go to the real-time market and we buy power. And if we're producing power, we go and we sell that in the wholesale market. And so because Brownsville has both generation and we have retail customers, we're both a load-serving entity, that's people who serve retail customers, and because we sell into the wholesale market, we're also called a resource entity. So we're playing both sides there. And so really what we do is we use the revenue that we can produce by selling the power to offset the cost of buying the power. We don't actually physically serve the power to our customers ourselves. And so the goal of our power supply portfolio is to try to produce the lowest cost possible for our customers. That's in the FPEC, or the fuel purchase and energy charge for our customers. And so what we're trying to do here in the integrated resource plan and with our portfolio in the long run is what combination of resources produces the greatest economic value for our customers. Because in the end, we're going to end up either paying for resources, making an investment, building a new Silas Ray gas plant or some other type of technology, or we're going to buy power purchase agreements, and then that's going to produce the revenue for our customers to buy down the cost of buying power. So that's really what we're looking at. And there are a lot of different types of ways to generate electricity. And here within ERCOT, you can see that natural gas is about 45% of the total power produced in ERCOT, called nameplate capacity. That used to be as high as 65 or 70%, but it's being displaced with more wind and more solar. Those are really growing. Coal is decreasing, as it should, and then nuclear is pretty much static. We have 2 nuclear power plants here in Texas, Comanche Gap in South Texas in Victoria. And so there's a lot of other smaller types of resources, solar, community and rooftop. We have hydro, a few dams here in Texas, petroleum coke, biomass, which is wood chips, landfill gas, fuel oil, and net imports. We have a few tie-ins from other regions, including Mexico and to the north. But that's very little power comes in. We're a standalone grid here in Texas. And so I showed these graphs yesterday just to remind you how these different resources react during the course of the day. So this is from an actual day. This is from April 11th. And on the chart on the left, you can see that 00 is midnight, and 08 is 8 o'clock in the morning, and 20 is 2000 or 8 o'clock at night. And you can see during the evening, nuclear, pretty much it runs constantly at a steady state. Coal almost always has to be running, and you can kind of throttle it up and down, but because it takes so long to bring a coal plant up, it pretty much runs all the time. So that's why it's kind of like, it's called base load, so it's always running. Natural gas, for the most part, can ramp up and down fairly quickly. Wind produces a lot of energy when the wind's blowing, and when it's not blowing, then it doesn't produce any. And same with solar, as long as the sun's shining. And you can see here on April 11th that we had a fairly windy evening, and so not much natural gas is being produced. Then around 8 o'clock in the morning, the sun starts to come up. You can see solar coming online there. Both wind and solar, we say it comes into the market at $0. There's no cost for the fuel. And so they bid into the market at zero, where natural gas is bidding in whatever its cost of fuel is plus its heat rate. And so there's a cost there, might be $25, $30, $35 a megawatt hour. Nuclear is really cheap, but it doesn't throttle up and down. And so you can see solar and wind displace the other resources during the daytime. And then around 8 o'clock in the evening, when loads really starts to increase and you've got the sun setting and the wind dying down, you can see that a small little sliver of red, that's battery storage, which is becoming more prominent now here in ERCOT. That comes online, as well as more natural gas. It ramps up. And you can see on the other side there are the prices. And so you can see that during the evening hours when the wind was blowing and there's not much load, prices are pretty close to zero. Then you see a little spike just before 8 a.m. That's everyone waking up and getting ready for the day. So load increases, and you can see natural gas on the other side kind of kicks on. Then through the course of the day, load pretty much stays fairly stable, but that's what you have all that wind and solar coming on. And you can see the price hit zero just after 8 a.m., and it pretty much stayed at zero all day long until about 5 o'clock in the evening. And that's when the solar started weighing off and the wind started to slow down. And the peak price in the real-time market just before 8 p.m. was $477 a megawatt hour. So if you have a resource that can produce energy and it costs $35 to produce energy and sell it, you're losing money all day long, right? Because the real-time market's at zero. But then in the evening it gets to $477, and so everyone who can produce energy is selling it into the real-time market. So the types of resources you can see really depend on what you're trying to capture and how much risk you want to take. And so that's what our integrated resource plan is going to do, is it's how much risk we as customers want to take in order to capture the most value in the market. You could do something like buy a power purchase agreement, which you transfer all that risk to someone else, and that will cost you somewhere between $55 and $60 a megawatt hour. And so that might sound good if you're paying $477, but you can see during the day when it's zero, that's a lot of money you don't have to spend, right? So how much risk do you want to take with a PPA versus having your own generation resource? So with that, Cassandra's going to come up and she's going to walk through some of the types of resources we have, the advantages and disadvantages. And again, this is all just background material. We're going to come back, we're going to prepare binders for you so that you have all this information when we start making decisions about what we want to recommend to our board of directors. So thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening. My name is Cassandra Rosales, and I'm the Fuel and Purchase Energy Manager for Brownsville PUB. So I'm going to discuss a little bit the different power supply resource options that we have and their advantages and disadvantages. Starting off with natural gas, the advantage is that it's fully dispatchable and it's highly reliable as well. However, some of the disadvantages is the emissions, the volatility of price, and then the environmental regulation risks that it comes with it. There are different types of natural gas generators, some with more efficient heat rates than others. And this is important to us because the lower the heat rate, the lower the cost for us. For example, some of our silage array units that run in combined cycle have a higher heat rate than the newer generation that's out there, like the Wärtsiläs. So when we're looking at this IRP, we're just trying to keep in mind that we're trying to look for something that's a low cost, which will be able to produce higher revenues. The next resource is coal. And coal is fully controllable and it's also highly reliable. However, the disadvantages is that, again, it also has emissions, it's difficult to permit, the environmental regulation risk, and it's more expensive to build than natural gas. The nuclear has minimal emissions and it's also highly reliable, but it's less operating, there's a less operating flexibility with it. And it's also very expensive to build. And there's public perceptions based on the waste management and the regulatory risk. The next one is wind. And although wind is cheap, which is an advantage, there's also different grants and credits available for a lot of renewables out there. The disadvantage is that it's not dispatchable, and it tends to produce more wind when it's not needed, typically at night. And there may also be some land use issues. The next one is solar. And just like wind, there are some grants and credits available. The advantage also includes that there's costs. The costs are rapidly falling. And it tends to produce mostly when we need it, which is typically in the middle of the day when it's the hottest. However, the disadvantages is that it's not dispatchable, and the amount of land needed for utility scale can cause land use issues. Now, battery storage can supplement wind and solar to enhance reliability, and costs are rapidly falling, and there's also, again, grants and credits available for this. However, the disadvantage is the complexity of installation and then the short duration of the battery storage. As you saw on the previous slide, that little red mark was just something very, very minimal. Mm-hmm. The next one we have is the demand side management. And in this one, it's finding different ways to reduce load at peak times, which can also sometimes be the cheapest incremental resource. However, the disadvantage is that there's complexity in defining and implementing the actual program. And it's best for commercial customers since they carry bigger loads. And this is also sometimes viewed as ineffective for lower income customers who may have limited ability to reduce residential usage because it makes a very little impact on what we're trying to do. Next, we've got the disadvantages and advantages of by development and contracting approach. The first one is the self-development. And the self-development would be building our own power plant. And the advantage of this is that we've got independence and control over it. However, the disadvantage is the complexity and development risk, including manpower requirements of actually building the power plant and then operating it as well. The next approach would be a partial ownership of an existing or a new facility. And the advantage is that we would share the risk, and there are more economies of scale of the larger facility, right? Because we're sharing that risk with them. And the operating responsibility is reduced or eliminated. The disadvantage, however, is that we have reduced control over the plant itself. We do have ongoing oversight responsibility, and there's risk of disputes with our partners. The next approach would be the power purchase agreements. And then advantage is the simplicity of it, and it's fully customizable to what the customer needs and what we need. There's also different fixed price options, and it eliminates any internal operation risk. However, the disadvantage is the risk of the supplier default because they would be carrying all of that risk. Next, we have the advantages and disadvantages of the actual power purchase agreements. And although there's several types of power purchase agreements, the first one listed on here is a fixed price full requirements, which means that it would follow your load. So as your load increases or decreases, you're getting exactly the energy that you need. And the advantage to this is that it minimizes the price and volume risk, and again, the simplicity of the contract itself. However, the disadvantage is that it may be more expensive since the supplier is taking most of the risk, and risk of supplier default is higher than other types of PPAs. Risks that lower cost options become available are also there, which would be buyer's remorse, meaning that we would buy at a certain price, which would probably be at a higher price, and then we've got the energy at a lower price, just like we saw on the other slide where energy pricing is at zero. We have paid maybe $50 to $60 for that price, so then we're kind of regretting that purchase. Moving on to a fixed price and fixed volume. This one has the advantages that we share the risk. There's also economies of scale of the larger facilities, and operating responsibility is reduced or eliminated as well. However, the disadvantage is the residual volume risk, right? And what do you do with that excess with that excess energy that you have. Then, as previously mentioned, PPAs are fully customizable depending on what it is that we need. So whatever it is that we're looking for, we would be able to customize it to what we need, right? What our demand is and the pricing that we agree on. So Ray will be presenting the next couple of slides.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening. My name is Ray Sanchez. I'm the leading fuel and purchasing coordinator with here with PUB. The next slide I'm going to be presenting is going to be the economic behavior of resource types. Understanding power supply economics starts with understanding ERCOT. As previously mentioned, ERCOT is the entity that is responsible for balancing the energy provided to over 25 million Texas customers. The net power supply cost for any given ERCOT utility is governed by the following general equation. Net power supply equals ERCOT net charges plus resource variable costs plus fixed costs. Some of the examples of the ERCOT net charges are the plus ERCOT fixed charges, plus load and megawatt hour times the market price of load zone, plus energy net congestion costs, minus our resource energy times the market price and resource node, which equates to our revenue. Other examples of resource variable costs include generation fuel cost and heat rate, generation variable fuel costs, such as O&M, purchase price of PPAs. Examples of our fixed costs are generation financing costs, generation depreciation. These are included in our base rates. This formula sums up how utilities arrive at the net power supply cost. The next slide is a pie chart that shows our BPUB current resources at the nameplate capacity in megawatts. As you can see, the highest producer is our Hidalgo plant, which accounts for 105 megawatts, while our steam unit 6 accounts for about 20 megawatts. Overall, we have a combined nameplate of capacity of about 358 megawatts. Our current portfolio has a mixture of wind, natural gas, and PPAs that meet our customer demand and generates revenue to offset our costs. This concludes our PowerPoint presentation. Please let us know if you have any questions for us.
Do you have any opinion as to the benefit or the disadvantage of homeowners investing in a solar panel on their roof?
On advantages and disadvantages of investing in solar panel?
I've heard all sorts that they're not worth it, they are worth it.
Right. I personally have heard that they're pretty expensive. I'm not sure what the cost out there is. I personally don't have solar panels, but I've heard that they're pretty pricey.
As far as energy that it produces, I mean, does that?
I think the solar panels produce whatever capacity they're able to, but there's also differences where if you have depending where the sun is hitting, how much energy they receive, if the solar panels are clean. I know there's different variations of that, but I haven't heard too much.
And if you do have one installed in your home, I'm sorry, you still are eligible to receive services from PUB, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes. Thank you.
So one of your slides on wind, it said it produced mostly when it was not needed, I guess during the day. So is there any way to harvest that energy, or is it wasted?
It's mostly during the night when there's that wind that's being produced.
Okay.
There is some battery storage capacity or capability that is available. But again, that runs a higher risk due to the complexity of it and only being able to store a certain amount and it only being available for a short amount of time.
Mhm.
But there is that option.
Well, one of the other disadvantages that I keep hearing lately is their footprint on our Earth and the integration with animals.
Correct. And then we also see the land use issues as well.
Mhm.
Require big pieces of land. Usually when you spread them out, right?
Any other questions? Thank you all for your presentation. We appreciate you.
Can you go back? Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the PUBCAP. My name is Lina Alvarez, and I am Brownsville PUB's Energy Risk Manager. Today, I will be providing you a quick update on the Integrated Resource Plan. Next slide, please. Okay, the Integrated Resource Plan is a planning tool. The IRP consists of the long-term load forecast And just to provide you a little bit of information as to what that is, it's looking at what we expect to see in the next 30-year period in terms of demand. How much energy are we going to be needing for the next 30 years? And what does that help us with? It helps us develop a 5 to 10-year strategic action plan. Why do we need to do this? Because a lot of our generation takes several years to implement. If we don't go with a power purchase agreement or a contract, then installing some generation sometimes takes years to do that. So it is a good planning tool. What does it look at? It looks at system growth, native growth. It breaks it down per customer class, or that's what we requested on the RFP. And then it also looks at the adoption of electric vehicles and energy efficiency penetration, so that all can be considered. The other item is that it's included in the IRP is the long-term market price forecast. And using a production cost modeling, the forecast delivers a price forecast for energy, for fuel, for ancillary services, and other costs relevant to BPUB system economics. This will give us more of an idea as to what's expected in terms of pricing for the forward 30 years as well. And the model offers transparency so that the users can understand some of the assumptions that go into the modeling. The next item is the assessment of existing generation. And this one is also included on the integrated resource plan. The consultant will assess historical and projected reliability for the existing generation. They will review reports, analyze, and have interviews with some of the engineering and plant staff members as well. This will provide them an idea as to try to understand if there's future reliability issues with the generation and whether we should keep some of the generation or retire it. Okay. The next item that is part of the integrated resource plan is to identify new potential resources. This is important. The consultant will develop a cost and performance estimates for 3 conventional technologies and for 3 renewable technologies. So they will be looking at solar, wind, and other renewable generation as well. The goal is to identify the least cost resource plans to satisfy BPUB capacity and energy requirements, and to develop a plan that's strategically planned that fits the needs and interests of the PUBCAP members, the customers, and the board. The next slide, please. Okay, to provide you, what are our next steps? Well, this Gantt chart provides us a timeline, and this process started since October 2023. We drafted an RFP. Then the RFP and the timeline presented to the board was in December 11th. And after that, an RFP invitation to submit a proposal was advertised in the Bronzeville Herald on January 6 and 13, 2024, posted on the BPUB webpage, and emailed to 21 vendors. The proposals were open on March 6, with 6 vendors responding. A review committee was developed to rank the respondents according to the solicitation criteria. And in May 7th, we took it to the Finance Committee to provide them the recommendation and get some suggestions from them. Come May 13, we took it to the board, which is a couple of days ago, and the board approved for us to begin negotiations with the highest rated firm, which was Patrolec Energy Advisors of Marietta, Georgia. So what are our next steps? Well, we're working on the contract. We already developed the first draft, so we're following our timeline, and it's going to be routed for everybody's review. Then hopefully by June 7th, we have contract execution, and from June 14 all the way to December 31st will be the process of working on the integrated resource plan. And we'll be working closely with you all because you are the voice of the customer. So how are we going to do this? Next slide, please. Well, the plan is there's a lot of work that goes behind that's not necessarily included here. What I wanted to provide in this slide was mainly to try to summarize some of the major stepping stones. So we will have 4 workshops. In one way or another, the PUBCAP members might be requested so that you can provide some feedback and serve as the customer's voice. The first workshop will be the introduction and overview of the IRP process and stakeholder interaction. The second workshop is to review input assumptions and planning analysis methodologies, which is very important. We need to figure out what our methodology is going to be in order to start planning the integrated resource plan as we want to. Right, there's some sensitivities to this that will take plan in workshop 2. We'll consider whether you're interested on a renewable generation. We'll consider whether you have some sensitivity to cost or whatever the case might be. But right there will be the time that we discuss that. And then we'll define the resource plan and evaluation criteria. And on workshop number 4, we will review the resource planning results and short-term action plan. That will be probably towards the end, sometime in October or November. And then come January 2025, hopefully we'll have a drafted IRP that can be presented to you all, and then to the Finance Committee, and eventually to the board for final approval. Okay, so we limit our risk by identifying problems and planning ahead, and that's the plan of the IRP. The IRP is a proactive approach to be able to plan for the best outcome in terms of being able to provide the greatest economic benefit to our customers. And that's our goal. We look forward to working with you all on this important endeavor. Any questions?
Is it too soon to know when the IRP workshop dates have been planned for, or has that been put out there? I mean, if
Sure.
you would like for assistance or for, the members to be there who can,
Yes.
maybe we can have those.
So they did provide some tentative dates. Of course, we're going to go back and work with our administrative staff to hopefully try to get as many as you all to be part of these workshops and be able to work with your all schedules. That's the plan.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Thank you, Mrs. Alvarez.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time.
Have a good time.
Okay, public comments next. Do we have any public comments?
If Mr. Cornejo is here now, he had signed up earlier for public comment. Doesn't appear so.
Next on our agenda, we need to decide next month's meeting. There's a conflict with the PUB schedule. So we can either meet the week before or the week after, the second week of June or the fourth week of June. Do we have any input?
I'd rather do the second week because I'm going on vacation.
Good for you. Okay, the second week. Anybody else?
I agree.
I'm fine with that too.
That works. I'll make the update and I'll send out an update after this meeting for everyone. And
Okay.
we'll update the website as well. It still lists the third Wednesday.
I'm sorry, I have a question from a customer that approached me. She told me to bring this up to the board. So she lives on Madrid Avenue off of Alton Glore. She said January, February, March, and May, they've been they've had power outages over those period of 5 months in that area. And so she wanted to know why that was what's going on. So I told her I would bring it up for her since she wasn't able to attend. So I don't know if someone can answer, or I don't know.
Is there anybody here from that department that?
Thank you. I appreciate it because I'm,
Yeah, if
I'm her voice.
I'll get that address and I'll look into it. We'll make contact with her. I don't know the answer right now, but I'll certainly look into it and get back with the customer.
Okay, so what do I have her?
If you have her address, you can give it to,
No, I don't have her physical address, but I can get it.
yeah, or you can give her my name and number. I get that to
Okay.
you. And
Sounds good.
We'll follow up with her.
Okay, thank
If you want, you can send it over to me, and I can make sure to connect you.
Thank you so much, I appreciate it.
I did have a follow-up as well. I know yesterday it seemed we had some power outages on the corner of Price and Paredes. Just curious to see what was happening. I mean, I'm making some assumptions that the storm may have caused some damage, but I really didn't see a lot of news on that. So curious to see what happened yesterday.
Yes, sir, please.
Yeah, good evening. My name is Arnulfo Mejia. I'm the manager for the substations department. So yesterday's problem was a problem inside the substation. So we had an event that took down one of the transformers for our Price substation. Price substation is the one next to Hannah High School. So that took around probably 4,000, 5,000 customers approximately. So we troubleshoot the issue. At first time, we always look for something obvious, down wire, broken equipment, something like that. We didn't find anything. Around 11:30, we powered up the transformer and it started picking up the customer load. So the system held for about 5 minutes once we had all the load back, and then it tripped again around noon. So at that time, we knew there was something on one of the equipment that we needed to investigate further. So we started distributing the load to the adjacent substations, the adjacent feeders. And we ended up doing that around probably after 1:30, around that time when we pick up the load. So today we did some more troubleshooting. We find out that we have a piece of equipment that was damaged. It was inside a cabinet that it was hard to see the first time. But since we started removing parts and pieces, so we find out that we have what we call a current transformer. That was what caused the damage, the tripping of the transformer. So we're on the process of getting prices for replacement and all that. But as of today, we have the system back, what we call back to normal. It shouldn't be more interruptions due to that. There are other interruptions, might be due to weather or animals, wind, things like that when that happens.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No, it's good to know. I think that's important for the community to know of how complicated these things can be. I mean, the only recommendation I would have is just consider I don't think anything was really posted on social media unless I missed it. I saw like a post about an outage for 200 homes.
Right.
But if it was over a different part of town. But thank you for all your efforts and everyone at BPUB that helping us to keep the lights on.
Thank you. Okay, so our next meeting is going to be June the 12th, I believe.
Correct.
I'll entertain a motion to adjourn our meeting.
Make a motion.
We have a first, a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? 6:43, our meeting is concluded. Thank you, everyone.